Hello. Hi. So today we are going to talk about the inclusive digital assistant. And before I do that, I would like to thank Sydney, Ben, and Angus for all their hard work for pulling off this event. So a little bit about me. My name is Shamla Prayaga. I am the founder of the Digital Assistant Academy, and I'm also the product owner at Ford Motor Company, leading the autonomous digital assistant conversational AI efforts. Prior to Ford, I worked with Amazon, VoiceBox, AOL, Kony, and many more startups and many more companies. But majorly, my voice experience started when I started working with Amazon, continued by VoiceBox. So I love gardening a lot during my free time. I do my own organic gardening. This is my, you can see the left hand side, that's my garden. And on the right hand side is all the produces from my garden, which I feel really proud about. Feels like it's my baby. So this is what I do during the free time when I'm not working and when I am not speaking in conferences or doing anything related to professional life. So we are going to talk about inclusive design today, like I mentioned. So before we start, let's understand like what is the scope of voice assistants or conversational AI assistants nowadays. 8 billion people will be using digital assistant by 2023. It has picked up ever since Amazon launched in 2014 to now. There has been a significant hike and hype both in terms of the voice assistants in general, like the use cases have expanded, the kind of domains which are being has expanded. There are 100,000 plus skills available. Google also launched their own voice assistant. Apple launched their own, and there has been significant hike. And you will start seeing a lot of more voice assistants everywhere. Autonomous industries, automotive industries, healthcare, and even drive-throughs are also looking up into voice solutions nowadays. So it's really picking up fast. And the prediction from Statistica is pretty relevant. Like, it will pick up, and there's a lot of more people who will be using it. And in terms of the smartphone itself, like many people use smartphone and not the smart speaker. So 31% of people worldwide use smartphone for voice search. They use it to find some information or, get some relevant Q&As and stuff like that. So even the utility of smartphones and voice search is also picking up. And now the use cases are evolving so much. People are also experimenting with voice commerce, and they are experimenting with all sorts of things when it comes to voice assistants or conversational AI in general. One thing we need to know is although we are making a lot of hike in terms of the growth of the voice assistants, people are picking up everywhere we are using it, but there's a lot to consider, and one of them is the bias. Voice assistants have a lot of bias when it comes to how they interact with the user or how they have been designed in general and all sorts of things. So why we have bias and what are these bias? Let's look into some of those things. So first thing is the regional bias. So if you are an American with perfect English accent, these voice assistants will understand you perfectly. But the moment you have some sort of accent, they find it hard to understand. They have trouble to understand your accent, and one of the reasons is because well, it was designed by a demographic or a team of people who do not have diversity. So that is why there was regional and racial biases. And that's why, when people say like, hey, my voice assistant did not understand me, I had to change my accent a little bit in order for it to understand me. All of those things are the reason, because there are biases when it comes to the regional or racial. Now, the second thing which I would say is in terms of the biases, there are a lot of elements to consider. So 60% of the people say the voice commands would miss the voice, like 60% of the voice commands would be missed by the voice assistant. And like I mentioned, part of the reason could be accent, part of the reason would be, your speed, like how fast you are talking or how slow you are talking, and all of those things, and how the recognition engine has been designed. So that is one thing. Now, the other fact is 23% of accents in the UK alone are frequently misunderstood, and this is from the latest data. So it's a huge population, 23% of accents in the UK alone. So think about other countries like Polish accents, or accents which are hard to understand, or people who have slangs, or people who have heavy voice. So all of these things also come into consideration when we think about accents and dialects. Now, the third factor is 22% of the Chinese accents would be misunderstood. Again, along the same lines, like all these difficult languages are hard to understand by these voice assistants. And the fourth factor is 35% of accuracy rate with African Americans. So there's only 35% accuracy, which is really low when it comes to a voice assistant. And that is one of the reason, like if an African American is speaking with the voice assistant, they do not understand what the person is saying. They may have to continuously repeat themselves, or they may have to slightly change, or they may have to slow down and do all sorts of things. So the pressure is on the user to perform rather than the system to perform. And that is another challenge which I see happening a lot with voice assistants. Now, the other bias which we have is the gender bias when it comes to voice assistant. And this is, feminism is all over. People talk about feminism, and gender bias is something we cannot ignore when it comes to voice assistant. One of the thing is 99% of all major assistants have a default female voice. So when Siri was launched, it was a female voice. Alexa launched, it was a female voice. Google launched, it was a female voice. All of these assistants had a female voice. Someone made noise. Someone said, like, okay, these voice assistants have female voices. And we have started comparing it with, like, because we are calling it an assistant, and because it is doing xyz kind of task, like calling someone or checking your schedule and all of those things, maybe that is the reason. And people started questioning those things. Many people started raising issues, and there were petitions, active petitions. There were, UNESCO have two active petitions. One is I'd blush if I can, and that is along the lines of, like, why voice assistants and the roles of the voice assistants are tied to a female. Is it because it is an assistant, and scheduling and doing task is a female job? Is it why? And people started questioning a lot of things. And when that happened, these voice assistants or these companies realized, like, well, that will not work. We need to show a better solution. And that's why they started adding new voices into their solution. But still, most of these assistants have default female voices, although you have the choice to select which one you want. So that is another challenge, or issue when we talk about gender. Now, another thing is, this is interesting, but 13% of women commands are less understood than that of a man. So if I were to say something, the voice assistant would not understand 13% of the time, versus when my husband would speak, it would understand, of course. Again, this all boils down to your diverse team and who you are recruiting. What kind of design team do you have, development team do you have? Do you have the right kind of uh, you know uh, demographics in your team itself? Do you have diversity? So all of these things come because we have these biases. Now, 56%, and this is very interesting fact, 56% people use more abusive language when they are interacting with a voice assistant with female voice than a male voice. And this is again because of the, domestic violence or the female abuse kind of things, which subconsciously is into our mind. It could be the unconscious bias of things that we expect female to perform better than male in certain things, and if they don't perform, we start abusing them. So these kind of things also have started coming up, and people, there's a lot of data around this which shows, like, how people use abusive language when it comes to interacting with these voice assistants. Another interesting thing was that people also ask these voice assistants for sexual favors, which is kind of interesting. It's an AI assistant, but these kind of things are also happening because it has a female voice. So these kind of regional biases are also, the gender biases are also very prominent, and there's a lot of data and noise around this. The third and most important bias which these voice assistants have is ability bias. And when I talk about ability bias, if you look at the population, there are many people who are disabled. There are people who have different kind of abilities, different kind of disabilities. Some can see, some cannot see, some can speak, some cannot hear, and all sorts of things. So when these voice assistants were designed, they were not thought about. If you look at Alexa in general, right, it was not designed that way. So this was a smart speaker. So the expectation was it is perfect for blind people because they can just speak to the assistant and hear back what the assistant is saying. But then it never thought about what if this person has speech impairment, maybe what if this person has autism, or what if this person cannot speak at all. How can they interact with the assistant if they want to? So that was one of the biggest challenge, especially when we thought about the ability biases. So not everyone is able to use, and this solution was not designed for everyone or keeping everyone in mind. Now, the second thing was people who have difficulty hearing. These smart speakers do not work well for them because they expect the input is voice and the output is voice. Like the input output modality does not have anything in it which will help people who have hard of hearing to interact with these assistants. Now, like I mentioned, if you are interacting with these voice assistant, it's great for blind people, but then it adds a lot of cognitive load. For example, if you ask the assistant, like, I want to book tickets from Boston to Chicago. So in that scenario, there's so many things, right? You need to know all the different prices, you need to know all the different timings when these flights are available, and you need to know what is the cheapest, or you need to know which one of them allows you to uh, add in the luggage, or if the luggage is part of their package, and all of those things. So there are so many permutations and combinations and all. So when if a voice assistant is being used for a voice commerce kind of thing, adding that much information, it will be a lot of cognitive load for any user. And obviously, it's very difficult just to hear a lot of information and just try to process it without having any kind of visual in front. So smart speakers are not best for uh, use cases where we have a lot of cognitive load when it comes to the information we are trying to present and process. So that's another kind of bias which we have. And now let's look at how we can make more inclusive digital assistant. But before we talk about how we can make more inclusive assistant, let's look at what does inclusion mean. Inclusion in my dictionary is designing a solution which is accessible and usable by everyone, irrespective of their age, ability, situation, gender, income, their cognitive level, and whatever it is. It should be inclusive regardless. It should be you are including everyone. So when I talk about inclusion, oops, I don't know why it's going back to this, but there technical challenges when you're trying to present online. So when you talk about inclusion, it's not that, well, I have a solution, but this is a solution only for black and this is a solution only for white. That's not how a solution works, and that's not what we call inclusive. For example, yes, we have smart speakers. If you are hard of hearing, or if you cannot speak, don't use it. We have another version which is a smart speaker with a screen, which is Echo Show. You can use that instead. That's not how we design a solution and call it inclusive. Those are I mean, that is completely out of the question, because you are designing a solution, but you are saying it is you need a different solution in order to use that. That's not what inclusivity is. Now the second thing, again, like the ramp, inclusivity is not that you have a ramp, but in order to use the ramp you have to go to the back of the building or towards the, maybe especially in the shopping malls you will see this more. But inclusivity is designing your solution with whatever you are giving to normal users as an add-on, so that they can use it regardless, and they don't feel like they are being left out, or they are getting a special treatment, or they need to do something out of the box, like what Echo Show or the smart speakers or those kind of model does. That's not what inclusivity is in my definition. Inclusivity is, regardless, your solution should be such that no one actually feels like you have designed something different for them. It should feel inclusive regardless, like everyone should be able to use it the same way they. And one person told me this and I was really surprised, and this person told me like subtitles are great example of inclusivity. Many of us may have used our videos uh, audio turned off just with the subtitle, not that we have any kind of disability, not that we cannot hear or any such thing, maybe because someone was around, we didn't want it to have any kind of disturbance for them, but we still wanted to watch that video, but we were watching using the subtitle, and this happens so many times with us. So that is an for a abled body, that is a perfect thing because they are able to use it in situations like this. But for a disabled body, it is a solution which saves their life, helps them use a system and technology like everyone else around here. So that is what inclusivity is. You have to think about inclusivity in that way, which is a benefit for normal people, but a necessity for a disabled person. So how do we do that? How do we think about designing a inclusive solution? First of all, we have to think outside of our unconscious bias. We all have unconscious bias. We all have tied our roles and responsibilities in a certain way, and that is why feminism is being spoke about so much. And that is why industry and organizations in general have started focusing more on diversity in their hiring, diversity in their team, diversity everywhere. The whole thing is because we need to come out of our unconscious bias. We need to have different kind of people in the team so that when we are designing solution, it is not biased towards. When Amazon was designed, maybe it was a team of all American white men, and that is why it has those biases. You never know. So when you are designing, you need to have that diversity, have a diverse team, and come out of your unconscious bias, and that is when you'll be able to think inclusive. The second thing which we have to start doing is data. Of course, we are talking about AI enabled systems. So when we talk about AI enabled system, there's a lot of things to do. The first and foremost thing is what kind of data are we collecting? Who are our target audiences? Do we have all kind of demographics when we are collecting these data, or are we collecting from a specific segment of users? So we need to have a more expand diverse collection of data as well. So bring in a lot of regional users or users from different demographic, different background, different regions, different accents, and then collect those kind of data so that you are designing the system, you are training the system with a wide variety of data, which is going to automatically make your system more inclusive, because then it will be able to understand more accents, it will be able to understand more dialects, it will be able to understand all the different kind of tone or speed and variations in speech and all of those things, and it will become a better system for everyone to use. Now the next one is include a wide range of users in your research and target audience. So we do a lot of research ourselves, right? So designers and companies will do a lot of research, but are we including disabled population in our research when we are doing or testing our products? Are we really using a really diverse set of people, or are we just calling it? Because most of the time I see people having a male female diversity, and they'll be like, well, we have 50% male, we have 50% female, but within those 50% male and female, do you have people from different regions? Do you really are thinking about, okay, I want to have people from different demographic and backgrounds even within those 50% population of male and female? That is what is diversity. That is how you can include a wide range of users. And within those, you also have to think about, like, okay, I need to have a small fraction of people who are disabled, people who cannot speak, or who cannot see, or people who have any kind of physical disability, so that when you are testing from all of the aspects and thinking about all the different kind of uh, blockers in your design early on, and then designing a solution. So you need to include a wide range of users in your research and target audiences as well. And the last and the most important one is, don't create multiple solutions with a smart speaker or a chatbot or something which does not serve for every user. Think multimodal. Think in a way which should be used by everyone regardless of their age, ability, situation, like I mentioned. And multimodal is a best way to go about it. If you are not able to speak, you can still tap on the screen, maybe you can hear. So there has to be the screen and and the voice has to be complementing each other, instead of saying it should only be voice only, or voice first, or it should only be screen. That's not how it is. Why can't we marry both of them together and make a solution which works for everyone? So inclusivity is all about including as many people and as many population as possible, and multimodal is the best way to go about it. When you're thinking about your design, when you're thinking about your conversations, when you're thinking about your dialogues, think about inclusivity. Like, okay, when present this thing, how would that work? The visual cues, the sound. Recently I got to know that there are even biases when it comes to the chimes which we have, and those chimes also have biases, like the white and black and male and female biases, which I'm not going to talk about today. But interesting thing is, think about those elements as well in your design when you're designing a multimodal solution, and then test them out with the users and make sure it is inclusive. And that's all from my side. Thank you so much. So let's open it up for questions if you have any. So Phil, yeah, I see the question. Yes, statistical report is publicly available, and I can share that with you. All right. Thank you so much.